assignment for your students. All right? So there are two big sheets on your table. One is blue and one is white. The white one has some questions from a Dale Gibbons book about spiders that he used in a third grade class. Which I'm going to do so this is a read aloud in class. And then the questions to go with the book are on this white sheet. I just put one each out because there's no use in the blue one has math problems from a fifth grade class. All right, so you have a sample from reading, a sample from math. Here's how this works. Please take the sheet that has 3 rectangles and a diamond. Flip it over and on the back write basic. Basic. Right? A kid in my class who is a struggling learner gets this. And he or she has to choose their tasks from the big sheet. So that student would have to cut out 3 of the rectangles and 1 diamond and glue it on their paper. Look at either the math or the literacy, or the reading one, and see what that looks like. Okay? So in the rectangles are tasks that are a bit more basic. Yes? Does that make sense to you? Okay? The diamonds are the middle level tasks. So even though a student is doing more basic tasks, they're going to have to have a little challenge, like doing one that is a little less basic. Okay. Honest to goodness, it's day 3, but I can even speak. It's an interesting phenomenon. All right? Please take the one that has 2 diamonds, a rectangle, and an octagon. Flip it over and write middle. So if you look at the big sheet, these would be the middle level tasks. So if a student gets this sheet, they cut out 2 diamonds, those are the middle level tasks, 1 rectangle, give them a little break, and 1 octagon, they have to do 1 more challenging task. Yes? Can you see the difference in the tasks that are on the sheets in front of you? Take them over the octagons, flip it over and write advanced. So if the student gets this one, they have to pick those. In kindergarten, we have 2 shifts. In January. Okay? Now, if you look at the math one, you will also notice there's an additional shape on there that's got a bonus problem. Anybody who wants to can cut that out and cover up any shape they like. You know, you can create more or less challenge for kids. Now, and for anybody, I'm the teacher. I decide who gets what of these. So this is a teacher-driven selection. If you get this one, these are your choices. If you get one of the other, so I decide which level is appropriate for you. Please notice, however, this was a choice on my part. Every sheet has at least 1 diamond. So a kid who struggles might, in fact, do a task that is the same as a kid who gets the advanced sheet. I think of that as an equity issue. Everybody should have some opportunities to do some things in common. They should have a chance to be part of the discussion. You know, you can do that or not, depending on what feels appropriate to you, but I do that on purpose. All right? I was actually in a 3rd grade class one day while we did the spider one. Okay? They read the book on the spiders. It takes a little while for everybody to cut out their pieces and glue them on their paper. But once they did, everybody was good to go. And everybody was working on tasks that are at their level.
Do you give one of these to every
Yes, every kid gets whatever extra. Yeah. I could make them with just their choices on it, but it's just easier for me to just do that.
I didn't know if you ever had them share or CDs or two students.
You could, but then sometimes you run out of things. So I just do it enough for everybody. There's not a lot of choice here. If I put 3 of these on a sheet, there are 4 on the big sheet. But everybody feels like they get a choice. So you can put more things on there and give them more choices if you like. But I make sure everybody has at least a little choice. Okay? These that are on here are for specific topics. You could do some for vocabulary development that are more generic. You could do some for books that you read that are more generic, so that I've had teachers do a couple of those so that in fact, you can use them again and again. Back to the fairness thing yesterday. What if somebody says to me, but I want to do this one? I say, finish what's on your contract, we'll put over case, anything else go on the back. Right? Nobody gets denied a chance to do something else. I'm your teacher. And I know which ones are just right for you, so you need to start there. Okay? So we call this get in shape. Again, the kids like this. It's not a hard sell because they feel like they're getting some choices. So take a minute, think about things that you teach. Is there a place that this would work? This becomes an independent assignment. So we've done a lot of group stuff up to this point. This is now your chance to do. Okay? So chat about that for a minute. Okay. Questions about this? Does this kind of make sense to anybody in terms of something you might use? Okay. So if you think about the more differentiated assessment tasks we've talked about. We talked about tic-tac-toe, we talked about the perfect 10, we talked about RAF, now we've talked about this. Yesterday you also got some tiered questions for the principal's new clothes. That becomes another like independent assessment task. So we've gotten like 5 different samples of this. Don't try and run back and do all of them. You know, pick one that you think is a good fit for your class. And my best advice for you, when you're going to try some of these things, whether it's a new strategy or one of the assessment tools, is pick one and do it more than once. Because it takes you a while to kind of troubleshoot how do I give the direction, how much modeling do I need to use, how difficult or challenging should I make things. But it also takes the kids a while to get their heads around doing something different. And so the first time you give directions, you will spend way more time giving directions and modeling than you actually planned on. But the second time it will be a little quicker, and the third time it will be a little quicker. So that using something more than once is a really good idea. Because then when they see it again in March or April, you don't have to start from scratch again. So you add that to the list, and then you pick another one. You add that to the list.
Lynda, I had a question. Started the conversation yesterday, which was a great one, about grading and talking to parents. And you know, this is phenomenal because it's student choice and different ways for them to show what they know. How would you go about then using this as an assessment?
Yeah. First of all, I am not inclined to grade everything, and that's just me. Okay, so some of the things we've done, I would grade, and some of the things I wouldn't. If I was going to use it as a grade, like a summative assignment at the end, I would probably make everybody cut out one task that was the same, so that I have one core baseline. So maybe the diamond on every sheet, I would say everybody needs to do this one. So I have one that looks like kind of a grade level example that's on every sheet that I could really say you've met the grade level standard or you haven't. Same thing with any of the others. If you're doing a tic-tac-toe board, if it's a task to help build the kids' knowledge and understanding, I'm not grading everything. If it's a task that I do at the end because I need to put some grades in my grade book, I might put one task in the center box on the tic-tac-toe board and say everybody needs to do this one and make that the high-value task. So maybe that's worth, if I'm using a 100-point scale, maybe that's worth 60 or 70 points. And then they can accrue other points or other
Well, we're standard.
scales.
We're standard-based here, so we would
the
look at
standard
2 or
one
3.
should be that one. The others should connect to the standards too. Why would I bother if they don't? But having something that represents the grade level piece, I think makes it more comfortable for you to say a kid did or did not meet the standards. Is that?
Yeah, I think that's an excellent thing, because then in March, using one that is the grade level standards, so for us to be the 3s.
Right.
You know, you would have solid piece of evidence to say, well, the student could have gone 2, this one was 3. Maybe the students who you think could have gone above and beyond,
Right.
you choose for them that they did a 4 work, and you know,
Right.
that's.
So if everybody has to do a diamond, and I say to a parent, your child either did or did not meet this particular grade level standard. Then if they're doing rectangles, I could say, but here's where they are in process to the standard. If they're doing octagons, I can say, here's how they've been able to exceed the standard. So I have evidence of both, but I still have, I think, I hope, a comfort level So I've given you examples for kids who are struggling towards that standard and examples for the kids who want to stick with this, probably met the standard before you started talking the first day. But what I want you to see is how you create that challenge for them, give some kids a choice, and have them create something of their own. So thank you for the question. Please ask those things, because every district I'm in has a different way of reporting things to parents, and if you don't put it back out on the table, I forget.
Well, I appreciate the answer because I said this is a lot of work, and I agree, you want it to be free every single thing. But you want to be able to get something away from it with a lot of time and effort, and that's what you're having conversations with parents, so thank you.
Okay? Anybody else? Question about this before we move on? Okay. Then there should also be a large index card on your table. You got that card. This is an independent task. Meaning you're going to talk to everybody when you're done, but right now, just when you're done. If I didn't give you enough cards, wait in my direction, I know that. Okay? We're going to do something called the two-word strategy. So we are now into day 3 here. We talked about a lot of different things. We talked about the basic principles of differentiation. We talked about grouping. We talked a little bit about assessment. We've done a lot of strategies together that hope give you a window into what this might look like in a classroom. So I want you to choose 2 words that best describe your own personal understanding of what you've gotten out of this so far. So 2 words that really tell about what you know about differentiating instruction. You can have any 2 words you want. You can't have more than 2. So just think about it. Pick your 2 words and write them on your card. Either way, it's an open-ended question. And once you have your 2 words, I want you to put those 2 words in a sentence. You'll figure it out. Just put those 2 words in a sentence. Okay, somebody tell me your 2 words and put them in a sentence for us.
I'll go.
Good, thank you.
Purposeful and fun.
Okay.
Differentiated instruction should include types of learning styles to create learners in a purposeful and fun way.
Thank you. Very nice. Somebody else, yes.
I did planning and choices.
Okay.
Differentiated instruction requires a lot of planning to offer kids choices that are interesting and easy.
Thank you. And planning is a huge issue here. I don't want to scare the daylights out of any of you. I absolutely admit to you that this takes a lot of planning. You cannot in a single school year go from wherever you are now and where you'd like to be. I don't care where you are in terms of differentiating instruction, because you're all different places. The goals you set for yourself may not be things that you reach in a single school year. I really think that this is a multi-year process, both in terms of your own thinking and also in gathering and creating all the materials. Okay, so don't give yourself a nervous breakdown over I have to have done all of this by Christmas. It's just not going to happen. Okay? However, this is what teachers say to me. This is more work up front for a more enjoyable time with the kids. That all the work you do before class starts to create these kinds of things creates a less stressed, more engaging environment, not just for the kids, but for you. Here's what I know. You go home at the end of the day exhausted. You can either go home at the end of the day exhausted and frustrated because you just didn't get the kids where you wanted them to go, or you can go home at the end of the day exhausted and optimistic because you see kids making the kind of progress that you want. There's nothing that makes the hard work go away, and nobody has a clue in terms of how hard your job is, okay? So you go home tired no matter what you're doing. But you can go home tired and happy, or you can go home tired and trying to fill out another job application in the car. You know, I mean, I think those are really your options. So I'm hoping this stuff makes you go home tired and happy, as opposed to tired and frustrated. Okay, thank you. Somebody else, your 2 words, yes.
Level and accommodating.
Okay.
Differentiated instruction uses level tasks that are accommodating to students' needs.
Thank you. Somebody else, yes.
Planned individually. Differentiated instruction is planned individually to meet students where they are to help them move forward.
Thank you, and it's the forward piece. it's not everybody is at the same place at the same time. Thank you. Right there.
Choice and challenge. Quality differentiated instruction allows for student choice and presents appropriate challenges for each individual.
And thank you for putting the word quality in the sentence, because that's the aim. Okay? Somebody else. Your 2 words. Yes.
Options and engage. The teacher creates different options for students to show what they know, and the students are actively engaged while completing these tasks.
Right. And to me, engagement is a huge part of this. If you can kind of see the kids who are engaged are going to learn more. Period. Done. Even if the lesson is not the best thing you've ever created, kids who are actively engaged are going to get more out of it. So anything that raises the engagement level moves us in the right direction. Somebody else. Couple more. Yes.
Fun and necessary.
Okay.
Differentiated instruction is necessary for student success and it allows for them to be fun.
Thank you. Anybody else want to share? Okay, so you should have picked up a big sheet that has eyes on it. Probably yellow. Or green. Or whatever color I had. So this is called From the Way I See. And it came from a really good book, which is referenced on the side, Reading Strategies in the Content Areas. Right? It's a book from ASCD, which is the Association for Supervision and Curriculum Development. What I've given you on this sheet, so we have less paper to pass around, is one that's already filled in and one that's blank. Just fold it so all you see is the one that's already filled in. And then you have a blank one if you want to use this in your classroom. Okay? So imagine, if you will, that we read the story of Cinderella. And now I want you to think about the characters from the story. So I actually learned this as a social studies strategy. So it might say in the middle of the Civil War. Look at the Civil War through the eyes of Lincoln, a Northern soldier, a slave, Robert E. Lee. You know, you look at things from different perspectives. We're going to use the story of Cinderella. So at the top where it says perspective 1, it says the prince. On these hot pink sheets that are hanging around the room are the quotes from the story. They're not actually from the story, I just made them up. But they could be some things that the prince might say. And so if you walk up to a quote and you think it's something the prince said, there's a letter on there. You don't have to copy the whole quote on your paper. There's a letter on there. You will write the letter right in the eyes next to the prince. Perspective 2 is Cinderella. Perspective 3 is the fairy godmother. And perspective 4 is the stepsisters. Now, most of these, honest to goodness, are not all that hard to figure out. Right? But there might be a couple that could be said by more than one character. And so if you find one of those, I want you and your partner to just talk about that a little bit and decide which one would be the best choice. Which one would be the more likely person to say that. So make a judgment call. Okay? But you understand what you're going to do. So you're a pair, you're a pair, you're a pair. Now let the 3 of you work together. Okay? All right? 2 and 2 here, and you 2 are a pair. All right? You can start anywhere, you can work in any direction, just make sure you visit them all. Go.
You're right now.
What? Write your leg down.
Oh, no, the prince. Prince has the ball, right? Yeah.
While we're waiting for everybody else to get back, please come up with an additional quote. What's something else the prince might say, Cinderella might say, and write it right on the sheet next to their name. Okay? Okay, so let's talk about this a little bit. This is designed to follow instructions. So we read the story, we talked about the story. Now I want the kids to go back and think about the characters, right? In this case, most of them were pretty easy to figure out. Okay? So at this point, I would take these off the wall, and I would give each team 1 or 2 of the quotes. So if your team had this one that says, "Why did my father the king think this was a good idea?" and I say to class, somebody tell me one they have for the prince, you raise your hand, you read it for us, and we all agree that we have M under the prince. But then I'd say to you, how do you know this is the prince? And in this case, the words are right here. My father the king. So you can point to them. Okay? If you have this one, how dare that pretty girl take all the prince's time? I hope she breaks her leg. You would tell me that that's the stepsisters. But now there are no exact words that tell you that, so you have to go back to the story and tell me something you know about the stepsisters that makes this a good choice. So some of them are really obvious, and some of them require referencing back to the story. There are always a couple that could be said by more than one. So there's one up here that says, oh no, the clock is striking 12. That's letter O. Where did you put that? Under Cinderella. Is there another character that could have said that? The fairy godmother. What, you know, so you then have that discussion with the kids. Everything is not always as clear as just seeing the words. Sometimes you have to make a decision. You have to look back at the story. Yes or no? Okay? So I've been doing this for a while. I need the most clever teachers. All right? So one day, a second or third grade teacher said to me, oh good, we just finished the unit of study on matter, and I'm going to use this as a review with the kids. And when people say things to me that I flat out don't understand, I just nod politely and say, oh, that's not interesting, right? So here's what she did. She created a sheet that says, what would matter say, solids, liquids, and gases. And what hung around the room are things like, my molecules are further apart than the solids, but not as far apart as the gases. I would fill a balloon, a tire, or a bubble. I'm a liquid now, but if you leave me in the heat of the sun too long, I become this. I love this, pour me, P-O-U-R. So literally what she did, which I thought was really smart, was she took all the attributes of solids, liquids, and gases, and she turned them in to quotes. So that they then, you know the part of the test that always says solid, liquid, gas, and lists all these things on the side, you have to match which one of those. It's literally what she did. And so it was a terrific review for the kids to kind of cement that understanding. So that opened a whole new world to me, because I'd always been thinking about something I would do with either real people or fictional characters. But now we've got inanimate objects floating around that we can talk about. So a teacher and I created this one for an end of the first grade when they had been studying about seasons. So what would seasons say? And some of them have just words. Picnics are perfect this time of the year. But this was a class that had a lot of English language learners, and so we wanted to make sure that we also had a lot that had pictures in them, so that some of the kids who weren't the best readers or didn't have the most vocabulary for this would still participate in the activity. All right? And so this was a review of the studying they've been doing about seasons. I've had teachers do this with all kinds of topics. All right? You just have to think about, I wouldn't do it if I had only 2 on here, because then it's a coin toss. So I would say anywhere from 3 to 5. Somebody did it on the planets, so we split them. We did some, and then we did some others, because that was just too many to have on one sheet of paper. I've seen teachers do this with geometric shapes. I've seen teachers do it, some of the high school teachers did it with like composite numbers, you know, like all the terms that go in algebra, so you now you see it going all that. But like the vocabulary to describe numbers. So there are a lot of different things you can do with this. This is a great review for kids because, again, they've got a partner, they're up moving around, it's very engaging, much more so than something you would put in another paper and pencil task. So take a minute, talk about this. Is there a place that this would work for you? Okay, give me a couple of ideas. Where might this work for you? Where might this work? Talk about the colonies. I thought that was an interesting one.
We were saying, for comparing and contrasting like New England colonies, middle colonies, southern colonies. We talk about geography, we talk about the people who helped to settle, we can talk about their economy and the products that they produce, and because because there's that overlap. It would be good for them to have those discussions, and we would use this as sort of like a springboard for a compare and contrast, probably essay, something a little bit more tangible for us to be able to grade. And she actually gave a suggestion, which was wonderful, to put all of the quotes on one sheet of paper with the letters next to it, so the students have that as a reference moving forward into subsequent activities.
Having kids stand and copy things down off the wall is frequently an exercise in silliness. Okay? It's a time consumer. I want them to be moving on. We have some kids whose handwriting is not great, and even though it's right in front of them, once they have it on the paper, they can't necessarily read what they have written. So, you do whatever works for you and your group, but I choose not to have you take the time to copy. I can just put it in a Google Doc, so you don't have to learn all the technology. You can put it in a Google Doc, or you can just give them a handout that's got the whole list with the letters right next to it, so that it's a reference to go with the sheets. They've got those two things together, and then you know where they go. Okay? Anybody else? Where might this work for you? Yeah.
So like when we get to Greeks, different Greek gods.
Yes. This would be great for the Greek guys because they're so darn confusing. All right? And here's the truth. If you're making up the quotes, a nice advanced assignment for some of those high-end learners in your class, if they understand how this works, would be to help you create the quotes. So while you're doing another review lesson with the kids who are still reasonably clueless about the Greek gods and goddesses, that can be the extension task for the kids who've really shown you they don't need that. And then they really like that because then we use their stuff. So that might be something you think about doing. Okay? Yes?
You said shapes for the other one?
Yes.
Where shapes in the box, and then I have three sides, just something.
Yes. That. And maybe you've just got 3 shapes and 2 descriptors for each shape. You can just start with those. Sometimes, like I have enough quotes to hang up on the wall that you all have a place to go. Sometimes you only have a couple of things that you want to hang up. And you can't have 8 pairs of kids standing there at the same time. My best advice is make more than 1 copy. So make someone blue paper, and you're all blue people, you go over here. And someone green paper, you're all the green people, you go over. Some of this is just how to manage it when you've got it up. Particularly with little ones, we need to spread them out so that they have, everybody has access. Because this is busy and a little noisy, but the only time kids give you a hard time when you're doing this is when they have no place to go. When they have to wait a turn to get to something is when one of them will do something annoying. So it's just make enough so that you can have them different places, okay? And with little ones, if you don't have enough wall space, hang them underneath the whiteboards, stick them on the floor, that sort of thing, okay? Anybody else? Okay, so tuck that away as another strategy, all right? So I'm going to do something, and all those of you who teach the higher grades are just going to have to suspend reality for a moment, and because I want to do something specific for our kindergarten colleagues here, because differentiation, you guys have been really good at figuring out how this works in kindergarten, but differentiation looks really different with the little guys, okay? So I'm going to walk through a lesson that is more, that I have done in some kindergartens, okay? And think about how this looks like differentiated instruction. And although all of you teach things that you think are much higher level, let me say this to you. You start teaching higher level thinking the day they walk into kindergarten. We do not wait until they're 12 to teach them to think outside the box, or to be creative, or to answer questions that don't have one-liners. All right, so this begins with the kids seated in a circle with me. All right? And I'm no fool. The kids are all going to have to answer a question, so I'm going to put at least 2 kids after me who have no trouble answering this question. So if my modeling is not enough, the ones who have nothing to say will have 2 or 3 more models before I get to them. All right? And so we're going to read a book about shoes. But I have a big stack of cards on my lap, and after we read the book, we're all going to talk about our shoes and where our shoes will take us. So I put my feet in the middle, and I say, these are my shoes, and my shoes are going to take me to the library to get a new book. And then the kids grandmas, and I write grandmas on the card here. These are my shoes, and my shoes are going to take me to the park, all right? And by the time we get to the fourth kid, we're getting some repeats. I've discovered Chuck E. Cheese and Toys R Us are big places for your shoes to take. Okay? During this one day, some little guy said, these are my shoes, and my shoes are going to take me to Ecuador to see my grandmother. I thought, oh my God, I don't know how to spell Ecuador. But he didn't either, so we were fine. But by the time we're done, so we've read the book as a whole class read, by the time we're done with this, everybody has a card that tells them where their shoes are going to take them. And then we go back around the circle and we read each other's cards. Okay, so my shoes are going to take me to the library. My shoes are going to take me to grandma's. My shoes are going to take me to Toys R Us. My shoes are going to take me to Ecuador. Okay? Then everybody goes, that's probably enough lesson for now. Then everybody gets a big sheet of paper and they've got their word. And they're going to draw a picture of them in their shoes going wherever it is they're going to go. Kids who can write will write their own sentence. These are my shoes will take me to. Kids who struggle as writers, I might write the sentence down for them and let them copy it on their paper. And there may be a couple who just dictate to me and I write their sentence on their paper. So we're differentiating how this, but everybody ends up with a picture and a sentence at the bottom. My shoes will take me to. Yes, everybody good? Okay. Then we did remember the other day we talked about counting off 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, and making 2 circles. Well, if you don't, because that's probably day 1. We count off 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2. The 1s are here, the 2s are behind them. Everybody's got their picture and their sentence. I turn the 1s around, and they show their picture and read their sentence to the kid behind them. And then that kid reads their picture, shows their picture and reads their sentence. So, yes? Can you all see that? All right? And then depending on how much time I want to invest in this, I move the 2s over a kid. So now everybody gets a new partner, and they get to show their picture and read their sentence. And then, you know, we can move as many times as you want, but they're all practicing reading. So such a big deal in kindergarten is that we begin to associate all of this gobbledygook with actual words that we can read. And so they have a chance to read to one another. Does that? Yes? Okay. All right. If this is later on in the school year, I've taught them to give each other feedback. Not in September. All right? But after you show me your picture and you read your sentence to me, I say, I like your picture of grandma. Or your shoes in this picture are really pretty. Or, you know, like I make them give each other some feedback.
Our grading series has that whenever we have shared it.
Right.
And they'll say something about somebody else's.
Right. And so this is another chance to practice that with something they have created. Okay? In kindergarten, it looks a lot more like whole group instruction because it's a while before kids can work independently. So it's the same, look at how the differentiation we've just done here, but we haven't done it with this kid or this kid or this. We've done it together as a group because that's really what they need in the beginning. But the part that I like for this is I then put them in little teams, 2s, maybe 3s, I can't do more than that. And I have them do a sorting. So they get a big sheet of newsprint, and they get pictures of shoes. And I have them cut out the shoes and sort them, because we don't wait to get to 3rd grade before we start to classify. So the kids whose skills are most basic sort into laces and no laces. It's a yes or a no sort. If you have kids classifying, you have kids who have trouble classifying into it's yes or no is the most basic place to start. But kids who can do a little more might sort them into cold weather, warm weather, or both. Or they might sort into dress up or work, or both. Or they might sort into shoes for boys, shoes for girls, both. You know, you can make as many different categories as you want. So, really basic. So now you're with more a likability partner. And we talked about the grouping yesterday. This is the time you be with partners who are more like you, and you sort based on what I think you're ready to do. Once in a while, you know, you get the hot shots in your class, and I have them pick their own categories. Cut out all the shoes and think of a way to sort them. Interesting to watch that. figure out how to do that. Yes.
And I always have to ask them, how did you start? Because there's a wrong answer. They can explain their story.
Absolutely.
And it makes sense. It's like a very obvious answer for the kids.
They never get it, but they want to say, oh, something that makes sense. I'm like, oh, it's not that.
Absolutely.
You can explain it.
And it's interesting to me to watch little kids sort things, because some of them are very global. It has to be in big piles places, like big categories. Others of them are much more kind of sequential analytics. We have to figure a way to make them do this. You learn a lot. But does that make more sense to you in terms of what this looks like with everybody? Now, a lot of these things fit there. They just fit there within that kind of basket. Okay? Yes.
So we have to use Daily 5, and there's actually a lesson in the Daily 5 book to teach kids using shoes, how to pick different books that fit them. So like there's this whole thing with, look at your
Right,
shoes,
shoes
and your
fit
shoes
you.
only fit you,
Right.
I can't wear your shoe. Do you remember that when you do Daily 5? How to teach the kids how to do self-select, and then they have to pick a book that fits them, and there's like this whole analogy with the shoe.
Yes.
So you can do that. Very good.
Well, if you want a book to read about shoes, when you talk about this is a cute little book that's got all different kinds of shoes in it.
Yeah.
Shoes you wear, in
That's
water,
what- yeah.
shoes you wear for different events.
Yeah.
But, yeah. And the other thing I would then do is go to my media center and get all the books about shoes that I can find that are at different levels. So the kids can then go back and read, some of them with just mostly pictures, some of them with other kinds of things. So, yes? And I want the rest of you to take a lesson from that, okay? There are times when you can differentiate whole group instruction. Just think about how much you model, who you choose to model for the class. Think about every kid in this circle will have to respond to this, but if this kid who's number 7 can't think of anything to say and tells me what kid number 1 said, I'm okay with that, because they have to respond. And if you get somebody who just can't do it, I will pass them, but when we're done, that kid and I go someplace, and even if I have to say something to them and have them repeat it back, I hold every kid accountable. You see that in the upper grades as well. I mean, I have kids in high school who said the worst day of their entire life in school was when they had to give an oral report. And their idea of participating with their group in the oral report was to be the person who goes around like this. Because that's just so intimidating to them. And so we need to find ways to get kids to speak that's not always whole group immediately. So maybe the first few times they speak just to me. And maybe I find somebody in the class that they're friends with and I have them speak just to them. Or maybe I have them write down, some of them can write down what they want to say and then just share it with one other person. And I've even had kids at the high school that do that videotape in a room by themselves so they can show it to somebody else. But everybody has to do, and your job as the teacher is to find that in. Find the spot where they can, if you're familiar with Howard Gardner's multiple intelligences, he talks about using those different intelligences as entry points. It's not that it's the only thing you do. You never just label it, oh, you're the visual learner, but you use the things that they're best at as the entry point for them. So when times get tough, you have a way to open the door. Then they have to do everything everybody else does, but you give them that as a way to gain. And I think that's important. It's particularly important in kindergarten because a lot of kids haven't figured out where the entry points are yet. They don't know how to go about that. But you've got some of your older kids who still haven't figured that out either. That they're still, how they learn best is kind of a mystery to them. So, okay? Yes, we go over here in kindergarten. Yes, because I like the kindergarten. As you've been so good about figuring out where that goes. Okay, we're going to talk a little bit about vocabulary, and then we're going to do some vocabulary strategies. All right? I told you day 1 that I was obsessed with kids' vocabulary. That has not changed since day 1. All right? And so here's the We talk about vocabulary as though it is in tiers. And I want you to think about this because kids really fall into different places. All right? Tier 1 vocabulary is the vocabulary of your everyday life. So when I see you this morning, I could have complained about the traffic on Route 70 this morning because it was kind of there. You know, like it's the language of conversation. What are you going to do this weekend? Oh, I'm thinking maybe we'll go to the movies. I went to beaches yesterday and I was visiting my sister. I think I'm going to meet some beach couples. You know, like you have conversations that is just the vocabulary of your life. And we have some kids who struggle with that. You ask them what's their favorite thing to eat, and they have trouble finding the word. You ask them what they're going to do, you know, like there are kids, and it's not just our kids for whom English is not the first language. We have some kids for whom English is the only language, who still struggle with that, okay? Tier 2 vocabulary is the generic vocabulary of school. So things like compare and contrast isn't tied to a specific content area. It's a word we use in school, right? Answer the question. You know, all the words we use in directions, a lot of words that kids see on tests, and a lot of words that surround the content area words are tier 2 words. And we'll come back to that in a second. Tier 3 words are the words that are specific to a content area. So we probably only teach polygon in math class. And we most likely teach analogy when we're talking in language arts. You know, there are words that are specific to our content area. We teach constitution in social studies, okay? We teach meiosis and mitosis in science class. But there are words that kids probably only see in a specific setting or content area. As teachers, we tend to be really diligent about teaching the tier 3 vocabulary. We're about to start a new unit of study. Here are 10 words you're going to see. Let's talk about those. Let's do something with those before we start. The problem for many of our students is that those words are surrounded by tier 2 words that they don't know. Let me give you an example. When Abraham Lincoln authored the Emancipation Proclamation, it was his intention that the slaves be freed immediately. I am the social studies teacher. I teach Abraham Lincoln. I teach Emancipation Proclamation. I make sure everybody knows what a slave is. But what does authored mean? What's an intention? I have kids who may know now because I taught them the tier 3 words, who totally miss the point of the sentence because they don't know the other words in the sentence. So we have a lot of work to do. Okay. We have a huge opportunity and challenge. I find it difficult to believe that any of you are spending too much time on the kids' vocabulary. I think it's possible we're not spending enough, but I find it difficult to believe that any of us are spending too much time building vocabulary for kids. Okay? So, we go back to this quote. This comes from Walpole and McKenna, who write a lot about differentiating instruction in reading and language arts. We believe that fostering vocabulary development is challenge number 1, facing teachers of struggling students in the primary grades. Teaching children to decode and read with fluency is indispensable to be sure. But unless vocabulary growth keeps pace, the prospect of becoming a successful reader, fill in the blank, the possibility of becoming successful in science, the possibility of becoming successful in social studies, the possibility of becoming successful in math is really slim. And so we're going to spend some time this morning doing some vocabulary strategies, all right? To really looking at vocabulary a couple of different ways. And so the first one we're going to do is a vocabulary scavenger hunt. So this morning you should have picked up 3 sheets off the back that have geometric shapes on them. They look right. Okay? picture, and there is the definition, and you will find a term that you need to fill in. See that middle box right there? Now, I know you're adults, you can all fill it in. Just pretend you're a kid and go do that, all right? But you also see two other boxes. One box says description. In your own words, how would you describe that shape? Not just the definition, but how would you describe it in your own words? And then, if you look at the green ones, you see the green ones that are around there? You will see some of those shapes in the actual world. And you will try and find a picture that has your shape in it. And you will write down what it is and what letter the card has. Now, I would probably do a whole one with the kids to model this. You know, we would take one of the shapes and we would walk through, and we'd all fill out our paper while we do it together. I think you got it. All right? There's more than one green one. Just find one that matches each of your shapes. Everybody understand what you're going to do? Now, you can do this by yourself, or you can do this with a partner, but you both need to do your own paper, because that becomes your study guide for the vocabulary for this unit of study. Everybody good to go? Take something to write with, take your 3 sheets of paper and go.
Something real, practice something entirely about. And also because I can describe it themselves in their own words. Because these definitions are some kids when it comes to the book.
Right.
But putting
What you saw in this strategy that could accommodate kids of various levels, of various interests, of varying learning profiles. What did you see? Yes?
the pictures.
So absolutely, okay, so if you've got any kids who are more visual learners, we talked about, we need to see it. The pictures will really help them. It places the big set of words in some context for them. We've also built in the movement for those kids who really do better if you let them get up out of their seats and move around a little bit, okay? So we certainly accommodate the kids with learning profile issues, all right? What else?
Being able to kind of like think about it yourself and put it in your own words.
I think that's appropriate for everybody, because those kids whose vocabularies are fairly basic will describe the shape using the basic vocabulary they've got. As long as the words correctly describe the shape, I'm fine with that. Those kids with bigger vocabularies will just automatically use bigger words. You know, like, I don't tell you what words to use to describe it, you get to use your own words. And for me, there's something about having to put it in your own words that cements an understanding better than just about anything else I can have a kid do. Okay? I choose not to have you stand there and copy the definition down. We're talking about that. Okay? First of all, it takes them an eternity. Some of them don't copy it down correctly. I want this to be your study guide so that you can, in fact, practice this vocabulary. Then I need to make sure you go home with a sheet that has it on there correctly. Right? All of these pictures came from a book by Tana Hoban. In fact, the title of the book is one of the pictures that's up there. If you're not familiar with Tana Hoban, Hoban, she is a photographer. Many of her books have no words at all, or have simple words in them, like there's one about opposites where the gate is open, the gate is closed, and it just says open, closed. There's not a lot of language, but because she's a photographer, the books are full of pictures. So check it out. Look in your school library, see if they have any of them. If not, my public library has a lot of her books about all kinds of different topics. So looking for pictures, she's a good person. I have one of these for practicing figurative language. So instead of pictures, it has examples. All right, so there's the sheet just like you had here with the term and the definition and some kind of silly visual that I can Google. All right, but then it has examples that the kids have to choose an example that is onomatopoeia, an example that is a metaphor, and fill that in. And then there's a final column at the end that says, from my reading. So that after the scavenger hunt is done, the kids keep that and fill in more as they're reading. So so it becomes an ongoing tool. You can do this with all kinds of vocabulary, all right? You could do it with your Greek and with your Greek gods, you know, where you have their name and what they're known for in a picture. And then you could have other descriptors or quotes, or things, you know, for the kids to pick from. You can do this with a lot of things. This is designed to be a vocabulary review, to take the vocabulary from, yeah, I kind of know it, to, I got it, I'm going to keep it. All right? Okay. So a little bit more about vocabulary. Here are some hard truths about vocabulary. First grade children from higher socioeconomic groups know about twice as many words as children from lower socioeconomic groups. The research tells us that is unfortunately true. The differences in vocabulary are even greater as children grow older. And there's a direct relationship between access to academic background experience and family income. And I'm not saying that to blame anybody, but it's just what we know. Kids who come from families that have more, tend to have more experiences to build vocabulary. All right? Here's the good news. This comes from Robert Marzano. If you're not familiar with Marzano, never mind. I know someplace I say Marzano, people look at me blankly, and I come here and I was like, oh yes, all right. So we've all been Marzano, so we can't stand it. Then only one quote from Marzano, and then we move on. But here's what he says, and I use this because I think it speaks to the power of what we do. If knowledge and skill that students from advantaged backgrounds possess is learned rather than innate, and I do believe that, okay? It's learned rather than innate. Then students who do not come from advantaged backgrounds can learn it too. Indeed, even aspects of intelligence once thought to be genetically based appear to be amenable to change through schooling. In simple words, what you do makes kids smarter.
Yeah.
And it's true, and I hope you believe that it's true, okay? That what we do in school has the potential to create not just kids who know stuff, that's the first part of this, they can learn things, but by extension, by learning things, they become smarter and are more able to learn the things that come later. You should probably hang that up someplace where you can read it once more, because I think it's important that we know that. We have kids who aren't necessarily getting the best grades, but who leave your classroom smarter than when they came in because of the things that you do with them. Right? And for me, building their vocabulary is job one in terms of creating kids who are smarter, who have more potential. All right? And so we're going to do a couple more vocabulary strategies. All right? We're going to fill up the rest of the morning with vocabulary. So, at each table, you are going to need a little sheet of newspaper, a couple of magic markers, glue sticks, and scissors. All right? So, for every table, just get that. And you're going to have to clear yourself a little space, which I know is the hard thing. You got a lot of stuff. All right? A little sheet of newspaper. Okay. So, we are about to start a math unit on rate, time, and distance. And no one will need to go to the nurse, I promise. But oftentimes, particularly with topics that are unfamiliar to kids, I like to start with a story because I think stories help them get, begin the content. So I'm going to tell you a personal story. Right? I've been married for a really long time. And for the most part, my husband and I get along really well. But in our 40-plus years together, we have never, ever, ever agreed on what time we need to leave to get someplace at the appropriate time. In fact, in the days before you had to go through TSA, his idea of when to get to the airport was so you could run out to the plane and get on just before the door closed. I, on the other hand, thought you should probably sleep overnight in the airport so that you would be there early. And the truth is, if he tells this story, I'm the one who sounds like the crazy one, as opposed to the other way you should leave. It's like a miracle. We can stop arguing about this, and we can use a little math to make our life better. So we're actually going to do some math problems that help us figure that out. But before we do, we need to build a little vocabulary. So I want you to take this little sheet of newsprint and a magic marker and just divide it into 3 columns. All right? Now, some of you will have obsess on measuring so the 3 columns are all the same size. I don't actually care. Just make sure they're 3 columns. That's okay. That makes you happy. And then I want you to take the little white sheet that I put on your table and cut out the boxes. There are 9 boxes on there. Cut them out. So you see that there's a card that says rate. I want you to put it at the top of one column. There's a card that says time. I want you to put that at the top of another column. And there's a card that says distance. And just glue them at the top of the column. Okay? Now, the other ones, I think you can figure out what column they go in. Don't glue them down until everybody agrees that you've got them the right place. All right, she's sharing. Okay, so you put rate, yes, and then you sorted them. And we all agree? Okay. Now we glue them down. So we're beginning this by creating a chart that has information on it for kids. So everybody look at the column that says distance. Everybody find the column that says distance? One way to measure distance is in miles. When I walk on the boardwalk in the morning on days I don't have to get in the car, I walk 5 miles. That's a distance, miles. So write the word miles somewhere in the distance column. Okay. I want you and your partners to come up with other words that might tell us about distance. Okay? So 580 miles. Come up with all the words you can that tell us about distance. I also made distance is for finding carpet, so you don't measure carpet in miles. Okay, so that's a distance, is speed. Okay? Okay, come up with some more. All the words you can that tell us about distance. Okay, somebody give me a distance word. Feet, thank you. Another one. Yards. Somebody else. Meters, thank you. Kilometers, inches. Any more? Millimeters. Centimeters, thank you. Okay, and so we as a class build a big list of these, and the kids keep writing down words in the distance column. So we're building vocabulary for them, so if they read a math problem and it has inches in it, they know inches describe distance. If we read a math problem that says kilometers, they may not even know what a kilometer is, but they know kilometer tells us about distance. They'll be able to solve the problem because they'll know where it goes in the equation, okay? Look at the one for time, all right? Think of all the time words you can. Get them down. Think about all the time words. Okay, and so now we come back and we share some time words. Somebody give me a time word. Minute, thank you. Day, thank you. Decade, good one, thank you. Century. Years. All right, so we collect all the time words. And again, we make a big one that everybody can see. Okay? Now, rate is a little different because you need one distance word and one time word. word goes first, and the time word goes second, and make some combinations that make sense to you. Okay, so somebody give me one of the rate that you created. Yeah. Meter per second, thank you. And if I saw that in a problem, what kind of problem might that be? Maybe how fast a rocket ship goes? Do they go meters per second? Think about that. Okay, somebody else give me another one.
Feet per year.
Feet per year, okay. How fast your trees grow. Good one, thank you.
Millimeters per millennium.
Yes. How fast the continents are shifting. Okay? Now, this is absolutely a time that I wanted to have the kids in heterogeneous groups. I do not want to put all my students who have very little vocabulary in a team together unless I have the time to sit down with them and use it for a little direct instruction. I want to take whatever is the wealth in my classroom and spread it out a little so we can build this vocabulary. Yes or no? Does this make sense to you? Okay? In the case of this, the geometry scavenger hunt, I gave you everything. In this case, I gave you enough to get started, and I can give you an example or two for each column if I need to, but the vocabulary is primarily coming from my students rather than coming from me. Okay? What's really nice is that it's now organized and they can see it, which is a good thing. There are kids who do much better when they have something that is clearly organized for them. All right? They have a hard time of figuring out that for themselves. So think about other topics that you teach and how you might use that for them. Okay, everybody see the vocabulary development here. I'm going to give you the tiered task that goes with the rate, time, and distance unit. Ooh! So now the math teachers are happy. All right? And I'm going to challenge you, although it's not going to be too challenging. So you've got two big sheets of paper. One sheet represents how I would scaffold this task for a student who struggled. One half a sheet is the grade level problems, and one half a sheet is the advanced problems. So that's just so you can see all. You better look up here for a second. I'm not going to spend time making you guess. This one, it starts with who can hike at a speed of 3 miles per hour? How long will it take you to hike 22 miles? These are the grade level problems. On the opposite side of that page are the advanced problems. Yes? Grade level and advanced. On the second sheet, that looks like this, is the scaffold for kids who would struggle with solving rate, time, and distance problems. In particular, I want you to look and see how this compares to the grade level problems. All right? The advanced problems are what they are. I just hope that it confuses the heck out of them and they have to really think. All right? But take a look how this one compares to the grade level problems and see what I mean. Okay, talk to me about the scaffolds on this paper. Because I think this is an important lesson for us in terms of differentiation. And this is a math one, but it could be for a writing task, it could be for how to answer an open-ended question, it could be for anything that has steps to get to something, a final product. So what did I do here? Right. Did I solve the problem for them? No. It is really important that I don't solve the problem for them. Okay? I don't write the paragraph for them. I don't answer the open-ended question for them. But I give them, when I'm modeling for the whole class, this is exactly what I do. And some kids, if you model an appropriate amount, will have absorbed this. and they're fine. But others will need to have it in front of them. Now, there may be some kids for whom just putting the steps on a card rather than writing under the problem would be enough. In which case, that's all I give them. But there are others for whom even that is a hard transition in the beginning. I want them to do the work. They don't learn anything if they don't do the work and don't produce something that is an appropriate answer to the problem or an appropriate sentence to write about the topic. So I need to give them whatever they need initially. The hard part is knowing when to take it away. The hard part is knowing when to take it away. It's not hard to figure out they need it. And I can't tell you, there's no magic here. You know, like some days we get it right, and some days we don't. It's kind of a moving target. You know, it feels like some days they need it, some days they don't. But yes, everybody okay with this? All right? So we've done 2 vocabulary strategies. One, where I gave you everything, and you just used it to practice and build some more understanding. One where I had more of the vocabulary come from you. Okay? So now I'm going to do my favorite practice for vocabulary. Sometimes kids just need to practice. And so we're going to do something called a vocabulary ladder. And to do that, each of you needs a partner, which I'll come be somebody's partner over here, okay? I'm a good partner, I actually know the answers. So I'm going to put this face down on your table, and you're just going to wait until I give you the directions before you start learning stuff, because you're all teachers, and I know you're all DNA. So I'll be back here once I give all the directions and we can decide what we're doing. Okay, so here's what we're going to do. This particular strategy, I think of as enforced practice. That's literally all it is. Okay? So, and before you turn these over, I'm going to tell you that I spent a good deal of time sitting on my sofa with the dictionary or the computer, trying to find 10 words that all the teachers wouldn't know. Because if you know all these words when you turn it over, you're not going to get a chance to see how it works. So does anybody have like a nervous breakdown when you look at these words? You're not supposed to know them all right? It's designed so you won't. What you're going to see in a minute is that there is a list of words, and next to each word is the definition. There's nothing tricky here. It's word and definition, word and definition. You and your partner will each have the same words on your sheet, but they will be in different order. So you cannot simply memorize the order of the words. You're going to have to pay attention to this. All right? So what's going to happen is you're each going to take one of these sheets, and one of you is going to be the teacher, and the other one is going to be the student. So when you're the teacher, you have your sheet open, so you can see the words and the definitions. When you are the student, you will have your sheet folded, so you can see only the words. Everybody okay? Teacher, student. If I'm the teacher, I start by reading the first definition at the bottom. Remember, your words are in a different order than mine, so yours will not be at the bottom. You look at your list and tell me which word you think matches that definition. If you get it right, I say, good job, and I read the second definition. And you tell me which word you think goes with that. And we keep going until you make a mistake. Believe me, we won't go far in the first term, so you make a mistake. That's why I call it ladder. You fall off the ladder, we trade jobs. You're now the teacher, and I'm the student. You start at the bottom, you read the first definition, I look at my list, I try and get the word. Everybody okay so far? Keep going until I make a mistake. Then we trade jobs again. And I become the teacher, and you become the student. Yes, so we're back and forth, teacher and student. When I become the teacher again, I always start at the bottom. Each time we trade jobs, we try and see if each of us can get a little further up the ladder before we have to trade again? Yes or no? Does that make sense? So you're going to get a lot of practice with these words before. Now, the kids will try and make this competitive. I'm going to tell you right now that your job is to make sure both of you get to the top of the ladder. It's not about yelling, I won. It's about working together as a team to make sure both of you can get to the top of the ladder. So here's what I'm going to do for you. Everybody take your sheet and fold it so all you see are the words. So I don't want you studying before this starts. And I'm going to pronounce all of these words for you. So fold your sheet, all you should see are the words. Ah, man, come on. No, you'll be fine. All right? So, here we go. Somewhere on your paper, somewhere on your paper is the word machinate. Machinate. Somewhere on your paper is the word sobriquet. It rhymes with bouquet. All right, sobriquet. Somewhere on your paper is the word noria. Everybody find the word neoteric. You also have the word penurious. You have Kegler. You have cutlass. You have genteel. You have ridicule. You have genitor. Now, if the worst thing that happens to you all day is that you mispronounce one of these words, we'll be fine. All right? So here's what you're going to do. You're going to decide who's going to be the teacher first and who's going to be the student. If, like, you're all four sitting together, it's kind of bothersome to have that, just pick another spot, you know, in the room where there's a little less noisy for you to do this. Remember, teacher, student, always start at the bottom. Teacher, student, always start at the bottom. Everybody good? Anybody have a question before we start? Okay, if you need me, come and find me, because I'm going to be over here with my partner. Okay, now, this is not higher order thinking, okay? This is not an open-ended question. It is just designed to enforce practice. I will only put things on here that you need for the kids to know automatically. There are some words that their life is just so hard because they don't know them. This is absolutely a time when I would pre-assess the kids. Okay? If you have 20 words that are important to the next unit of study, and you have a kid who gets 17 or 18 of them right, they shouldn't do this. They learn vocabulary quickly. They should go do something else. All right? If you have a kid who gets 17 or 18 of them wrong, you pick the ones that are most important, and you get them a partner who has similar words wrong. Okay? So this is a time when you want to be with a more homogeneous partner. Okay? Rather than being with a partner who can go to the top of the first time around, and I'm still struggling, that doesn't make this work. Okay? So more homogeneous pairs. Now, because this is one right answer, you can use it for other things as well. So, if there are kids who still don't know all their math facts, 9 times 7, 63. Okay? So you can certainly do it with that. I have a social studies teacher from one of the high schools who did this with important people from a social studies unit. So here's the descriptor over here. You can do it with all kinds of, it's just one right answer. Okay? And again, you don't want to overwhelm kids with information that is less important. I don't want to say trivial because everything's important, but some things are more important than others. And so you really want to focus them. You can do this, but I have absolutely no suggestion for you how to do this when you're kindergarten. But, so we're done. But once you get to second or third grade, kids can do this, okay? And it's because it's a game format, it doesn't feel as punitive to practice vocabulary as it does when you just tell them. And plus, we say to kids, you need to go home and practice. they have no strategy for practicing, okay? Now, you can use things like Quizlet, flashcard stash, stuff they can do on the computer, that's fine. I mean, that's perfectly acceptable. But this is just one you get to do with a partner, and so some kids easily themselves, all right? So vocabulary ladder, take a minute, jot an idea down, what kids would this work for, or where would it be appropriate? Okay, any questions about this? If you have stations, learning centers, that sort of thing in your classroom, this can go there. It doesn't, the first time you do it, you need the whole class to practice at once so you can be there. But once they get the hang of it, it can just be something you tuck away. All right, I am declaring a 10-minute stretch break, all right? Just leave all these supplies out on the table. We may need something again later, so we'll have major cleanup when we're done today. All right, so we're going to take a stretch, and then we'll come back together. 10 minutes. And then we're going to do some more reading. So, you need one of these, and a partner. Try that. You need one of these, and a partner. Okay? You also need one of the, I put a paper clip on the table, all right? One of you will be person number 1, you can just write your initials at the top of the first column. One of you will be person number 2, you will write your initials at the top of the second column. You'll need one of the boards for the 2 of you, okay? Play with one another. So here's how this works. I take my paper clip. This is very high tech. I take my paper clip and I take a pencil. And I spin. You do a big one on the smartboard. And spin with it, okay? So, if I spin AI, I look at my column. I find a word that I can finish with AI, and I fill it in, just one. Now it's my partner's turn. My partner spins. She spins OA. She looks in her column. She fills in a word with OA that would finish a word correctly. Yes or no? Okay. Now, at some point, after I've had a couple of chances to spin, I may spin something that doesn't fit in any of the spaces that are left. It doesn't make a real word. In which case, then it's my partner's turn. Okay? So if it doesn't fit, we just pass it on to them. We keep going until one of us is able to fill in all the words in our column. Yes or no? Okay. Try it out. Okay, everybody got the idea? Let me give you a couple of other possibilities. Works great for all kinds of phonics skills. You could put prefixes on the spinner and root words on the sheet. You could put from 1 to 9 on the spinner and then put 9 times blank equals 9, 9 times blank equals 18, 9 times blank equals 27. Okay, to practice math facts. You could put fractions on the spinner, and then on the list are all the equivalents. So if on the spinner it says 1/2, 1/3, 1/4, 1/5. On the list would go things like 20%, 0.20, but also the equivalent fraction, 2/10. So you make a list of things that are equivalents of the fractions that are on the spinner for the kids. So this is just, there's something about games that makes good practice for kids, okay? So this is just an easy format, and they happen to like the paper clips, paper clip makes them happy, so here they'll do that. With kindergartners, we can do things as a whole group. Put the spinner up on the smartboard and fill in what you want, and the kids take turns spinning, and then we have a sheet where we figure out where things go. Yeah, by later in the year, even if you have like the hat family on there, and then just a single consonant on there, so we can make that, we can make more hands. It's either laminated so you can wipe them off and use them again, or stick them inside of some of the communicators so that, you know, you're not using up paper by the gallon, because they will play this over and over again. Okay? So, we're going to do one more reading lesson. We're going to do a little more picture reading, and then we're going to try and pull the 3 days together and really talk about what this means back in the fair. So, we're going to do a lesson about the difference between facts and inferences. Whoa! All right, let's make the teacher have a nervous breakdown. Try and figure out what is the difference between facts and inferences. So, over here, on the top of the bookshelves, and then one hanging on the wall over there, are some sheets that say fact and inference. Okay? And next to each one is a picture. So if you and I are partners, we walk up to this sheet and we look at this picture, and we have to write down one fact and one inference. So our fact might be, the boy is wearing a red shirt. Because we can point to that in the picture. We know it's a fact. There it is, right in front of us. Then we have to make an inference. He's nervous. Okay? That's all we have to do right now. Later on we'll have to prove that that's a good inference. But for right now, we write down one fact and one inference. The next team comes up. They read the fact and the inference that we wrote. They try and write another fact and another inference. Then the next team comes up, and they see what both of us have written before, and they try and write another fact and another inference. So the longer we do this, the harder it gets, because people will use up the easy ones first. All right? I'm going to give each partnership a different color marker, because that's the, oh, then we're all over my hand, it's like a t-shirt. That is going to be the, oh, no, they're all ones. Okay, you're all going to have to marker on your hands. Just get, okay, so I give each team a different color marker because that's the accountability. I know what color you have, so I know what you're writing on the paper. All right? We're not going to have to take the time to do all of them, but I want you to do a number of them. So if somebody's standing in this one, just go pick another one. All right? Everybody understand what you're going to do? One fact, one inference. Go.
My cards.
Brown dog. It does? Like this. I love it.
Finish the one you're working on, and then I want you and your team to take one picture and the newsprint back to your seat. Okay? Pick one that's got someone. Don't pick one you have one. Here's your first job as a team. Your first job. I want you to look at the list of facts, and I want you and your team to decide if these are all facts. Then you actually see in the picture what would make that a fact. And let me give you an example. If someone wrote in the fact list, he has grape juice in the glass, that's not a fact. It's purple, but we don't know it's grape juice. Okay? So look at the facts, look at your picture, and check and see if each of them is a fact. If you have something you're not sure is a fact, then we come back to the class and we talk about that. Oh, we don't think that's a fact because we can't point to something in the picture. We don't know that it's true. I can take these. Okay. So step one is to check the facts. Check two. Step two is to take a look at the inferences. I want you and your partners to choose one inference that you think is a really good one, and we will share that. Okay? All right.
dog has a very good poker face.
The dog has a very good poker face. And what do you think makes that a good inference?
He's playing cards.
Yeah, I mean,
Shows
really,
no
there's
expression.
no expression.
Yeah.
You can't tell whether this dog is smiling or grumpy,
Right, yeah.
right? You can't see his cards. So I would say that that's an inference we could make about that picture. Thank you. Somebody else? Yes. Show us your picture.
And then you chose keywords that Campbell's. You can't tell that they're based out on this shirt label here that says Campbell's.
Little label of Campbell's. So you're going to make an inference that he works at Campbell's. That may or may not be true, but it's certainly a good inference because you've got some evidence to support that. Anybody else have? Yes.
Elephant is trained.
The elephant is trained. And what makes that a good inference?
Because the gentleman does not look like he's in pain or frightened, so he's just hanging out, hugging.
And it's not like tight.
It's not
Right.
tight.
It's very
It's
loose.
tight.
Yeah.
He's not dead. Okay. But no. So that you think it looks like it's safe in this picture because the elephant is trained. Okay, good inference. Thank you. Anybody else have one that they think is a good inference? Yes, show us your picture. The cookie cakes. Yes.
The cookies are too hot to eat.
The cookies are too hot to eat. What makes that a good inference? They're not eating. And you can see the way they're standing there waiting, right? It's the wait look. All right? This gives kids a chance, just like the other day when we practiced outside of reading, okay? Sometimes taking away a lot of reading and just practicing the skill is good for kids. So we practice thinking about facts and inferences using pictures only, all right? So now we're going to move on and do some reading. And in order to do this, you are going to need, you can put the pictures back here. I will just collect them here. You're going to need a big sheet of newsprint for you and your partners. So get a big sheet. First thing you're going to do is take 3 columns on your newsprint and label the columns Prince, Princess, and Dragon. Next step, you're going to open this envelope and you're going to find a lot of cards with words on them. Spread them out. And you and your partners are going to decide, based on what you know about stories that have princes, princesses, and dragons, where might those words go? I'm not going to give any clue. Okay, so I'm going to read you this story, which may be familiar to some of you. Every so often I'm going to stop. When I stop, you will have an opportunity to move the words around, okay? Because although you predicted, you may decide as you hear the story that you don't like where some of the words are. You want to put them someplace else, okay? Generally speaking, I use this like maybe in a 4th grade class as a read aloud to do this. And I say to the kids, so are there any words we need to talk about? And they'll come up with a couple that are not familiar to them. So perhaps resourceful, arrogant, okay? So one day nobody in the room knew what arrogant meant. And there was a stack of dictionaries over on the shelves. I said to one of the kids, so go look that up for us. Here was the dictionary definition of arrogant. Haughty. Sometimes you just need to tell them. An arrogant person is, an arrogant person was. Give them an example and move on, okay? Because sometimes looking it up is just an exercise in silliness. All right, so the paper bag princess. Here we go. Elizabeth was a beautiful princess. She lived in a castle and had expensive princess clothes. She was going to marry a prince named Ronald. Unfortunately, a dragon smashed her castle, burned all her clothes with his fiery breath, and carried off Prince Ronald. Some of you just can't wait till I stop. Elizabeth decided to chase the dragon and get Ronald back. She looked everywhere for something to wear, but the only thing she could find that was not burnt was a paper bag. So she put on the paper bag and followed the dragon. He was easy to follow because he left the trail of burnt forest and horses' bones. Put your heads back together and see if there are any words you would like to move at this point. always model for the kids the kind of conversation I want them to hear when they're moving the words around. So if you decide to move a word, I want to hear you say something like, in the story it said, or I heard, that they go back to the story that we're reading with the evidence for how they've changed their mind. Okay, now I can't guarantee they're all having that conversation all the time, but I'm walking around and that's what I'm looking for. That's what I'm listening for. Okay, so remember that she set off to find the dragon. Finally, Elizabeth came to a cave with a large door with a huge bell on it. She took hold of the bell, she took hold of the bell and rang it as loud as she could. The dragon stuck his nose out of the door and said, well, princess, I would love to have you for lunch, but I've already eaten the whole castle today. I am a very busy dragon. I'll come back tomorrow. He slammed the door so fast that Elizabeth almost got her nose caught. Elizabeth grabbed the bell and rang as loud as she could. The dragon stuck his nose out of the door and said, go away. I would love to eat a princess, but I already have eaten the whole castle today. I am a very busy dragon. Come back tomorrow. Wait, shouted Elizabeth. Is it true that you are the smartest and fiercest dragon in the whole world? Put your head back together. Is there anything you'd like to know? Okay, here we go. There may come a time when you have a word that you would really, really, really like to have in more than one column. And if that's true, and you really decided that's what you want, you just grab a marker and write it in. Okay? So just a little bit. So remember that she asked if they think was smartest and fiercest, and darn it, that dragon didn't say yes. Is it true, said Elizabeth, you can burn up 10 forests with your fiery breath? Oh yes, said the dragon. He took a huge deep breath and breathed out so much fire he burned up 50 forests. Fantastic, said Elizabeth. And the dragon took another huge breath and breathed out so much fire he burned up 100 forests. Magnificent, said Elizabeth. And the dragon took another huge breath. But this time, nothing came out. The dragon didn't even have enough fire to cook a meatball. Elizabeth said, dragon, is it true you can fly around the world in just 10 seconds? Why, yes, said the dragon, and jumped up and flew all the way around the world in just 10 seconds. He was very tired when he got back. So Elizabeth shouted, fantastic! Do it again! So the dragon jumped up and flew around the world in just 20 seconds. When he got back, he was too tired to talk. And he lay down and went straight to sleep. Put your heads back together. Are there any words you'd like to move now? Okay, so remember the dragon went straight to sleep. Here we go. Elizabeth whispered very softly, hey, dragon. The dragon didn't move at all. She lifted up the dragon's ear and put her head right inside. She shouted as loud as she could, hey, dragon! The dragon was so tired, he didn't even move. Elizabeth walked right over to the dragon and opened the door to the cave. There was Prince Ronald. He looked at her and said, Elizabeth, you are a mess. You smell like ashes, your hair is all tangled, and you're wearing a dirty old paper bag. Come back when you are dressed like a real princess. Put your heads together and see if you'd like to move any words now. And he has made an appearance. Here comes the end of the story. Ronald, said Elizabeth, your clothes are really pretty, and your hair is very neat. You look like a real prince, but you are a bum, and they didn't get married after all. Last chance. See if you'd like to move any of the words. add some words to each of the characters. Something, please understand, reasonably socially appropriate, because we are going to share. So as a team, come up with some more words that you would add to each of the characters. Grab a marker. What do you think? And so at this point, we would come back together as a group, and we would share where people have put words, and then I'd also hear some that people added. So does anybody have a word they added from the dragon? I was in a 4th grade class one day, and they added gullible. You know, when you open the door like that, you get really interesting words. Now, people will write things like tricks and fool, but you never know what vocabulary is out there. So everything in the class now gets exposed to that word, even though there may have been only one kid in the class who knew what gullible meant. Okay? Anybody have a word they added for the princess? Yes? Strong, thank you. Another one, princess word. Determined, thank you. Good one. Smart. Okay? Anybody have a word they added to the prince?
Superficial.
Superficial. Good word. Thank you. Anybody else? A bum. I had one who adds single. Okay. So we have another task for you. Look at all the words you have under princess. Okay? And they could be words that you put there, that I gave you, or words that you've added. And as a team, I want you to decide what 3 words describe the princess best. You can have any 3 words that you want, but you may not have more than 3. Okay? Everybody got your 3 words? Pretty good? Okay. Let's hear the 3 words from each team, and we'll see what words we have in common or what words we may have chosen differently. So what were your 3 words?
Resourceful, clever, and brave.
Thank you. Your 3 words.
Resourceful, clever, and assertive.
Resourceful, clever, and assertive. Thank you.
We're brave, clever, and assertive.
Brave, clever, and assertive. Thank you.
Same as the first word, brave, resourceful, and clever.
Thank you.
Resourceful, brave, and annoying.
And annoying. And I do believe from the dragon's perspective, she was annoying. From the prince's perspective at this point, she probably was annoying because she dumped it. So I'll take that. Okay. I have 2 topics on your table. The first thing you have in there is the story. One of you is going to be the highlighter for the team. So we'll highlight on your top. If you said the princess was resourceful, you have to find something in the story that proves it. If you said she was brave, you have to find something in the story that proves it. So go back with your 3 words. And just write the word that you're using like in the margin someplace. So you highlight this for resourceful, write resourceful somewhere so we know that's required. Okay, everybody got the idea. Now, if I teach younger kids, we put the story back up and we look for the evidence together. As kids get older and more able, I have them work with a partner to do this. I certainly have kids do this by themselves, but I think the conversation that you're having while you're looking for the evidence has a lot of value. So I would absolutely encourage this as at least as a partner strategy, just to generate that. Okay? So you have a copy of the story. I'm going to share with you the writing prompts that follow this. Because we've done a lot of work here in preparation to be able to write. So 3rd page in your packet says writing prompts, paper bag princess at the top. Okay? Talk about each one. The first one is the grade level writing prompt. All right? So, using the 3 words you chose and the evidence you found. So see that we've already done the preparation here. Write a paragraph describing the princess. You may use things she says and does in your paragraph, things other characters say and do, and the words from your chart. So if I'm doing this with a group of 4th graders, this is what I expect. Okay, I expect that one paragraph where they use the words and they tell me the evidence that they have to support those words. Yes or no? Does that make sense? Now, how could I scaffold that for a kid who is going to struggle with that writing? They get the same prompt, but turn to the next page. before that student writes, either independently or with me sitting there and helping them, they fill in this graphic organizer. Okay? And down at the bottom is what that might turn into. Now I write at least as well as your average fourth grader. So, but each of these boxes can turn into a sentence, and you've now got one paragraph that responds to that prompt. Yes or no? Okay? And for most of my struggling writers, that would be enough. But I may have a student on occasion for whom even that is not enough to produce an acceptable paragraph. So turn to the next page that says graphic organizer number 2. In this case, a student is filling in what they need to create a paragraph. I would not do that for any kid for whom the graphic organizer was enough. In other words, the graphic organizer number 1 would be my first choice, but you may have a kid that still can't do that, in which case I would move back to this. Yes or no? Does that make sense to you? The hard part is going back as far as you need without going any further. That's kind of the hard one, okay? Go back to the writing prompts. I want to share with you the advanced writing prompt. So, number 1 is the writing prompt for my grade level kids and for my kids who might struggle with some support. What do I do with the kids who are more able writers? It starts exactly the same. Using the 3 words you chose and the evidence you found, write a paragraph describing the princess. You may use the things she says or does in your paragraph, things other characters say and do, and the words from your chart. But I add a little something more. Write a second paragraph that describes the princess from the point of view of the dragon or the prince. Back to the word annoying. Would you agree with the words you chose, or would they choose others? I'm not asking those kids to write a 5-paragraph essay, but it is appropriate sometimes to ask them to write a second thing that extends it for them. And I wanted you to see that as an example. This doesn't work for everything. Do you see how I wrote this? Okay? Everybody meets the grade level objective. Write a paragraph that uses words and evidence. That's my goal for everybody. Everybody does that. Everybody okay? If I wanted to extend this, I could create a tic-tac-toe board around the paperback princess. So you've seen other samples of this? Take a peek at one more. This is a fiction one. You've seen some non-fiction ones. Take a look at a fiction one. So what I want you to think about, because we used a fiction story here, is how this was layered. Okay? To go from just using the pictures on the wall to practice inferences to the different writing prompts. How do we go from a kid who really doesn't know the difference between a fact and an inference to actually writing, using inferences, and finding the supporting evidence? So just kind of talk about that. Talk about the layers. Okay, let's start talking about the story and more about how we got it. Okay, so just for all of us, to make sure we're all on the same page, I'm going to go back and list for us the things that we have done. And then I'm going to give you a task to do to help us think more about differentiation. So we didn't give one, get one the first day, all right? Where you had to create a list and then you had to go gather some from somebody else. And we did the lesson that where we used the cartoons. So we used jigsaw as a strategy. Remember, each of you had to work with one group and then you went and talked with another. And I did some modeling before we started. It's really important to remember that one of the keys to differentiating well is figuring out when to model, how much to model, which kids need a lot of modeling, which only need just one turn around, okay? And then we did an example of the perfect 10 and an example of tic-tac-toe. So you have both of those. We did the reading where we did the looking frames. where we saw a snippet of video first. And then we did some vocabulary building, first with the foldables that you got to play with while you were learning the words. And then we did some prediction using the word flashcards that were out on the table. And then as we read, you and your partner had two different colored highlighters so that you could highlight things that you predicted correctly and you can highlight things that surprised you. And back to, it says surprised rather than got wrong because some kids hate to be wrong. That it just makes it easier for them to do that. Okay? And then I gave you a sample of graph, role, audience, format, and topic as a writing prompt sample. And I gave you the whole list of different possibilities. So we did that. We did two different kinds of math scavenger hunts. We did the one that we had back here with the order of operations where you had the answers on the paper. So being wrong meant you just had a chance to do it again. So we really built in correct answers. And then we did the money one that was over here that was tiered. So there were three different colors. Everybody meeting the same objective, improving your skills with counting money, but at a level that was appropriate for you. Okay, so we did that. We had the feedback rings the first day, which I think is something to keep an eye on. Creative. What was on these may not work for your kids, but having a set where you can have kids reflect on what they've learned or give feedback is really a nice thing to have in your classroom. Okay? And we talked about the basic components of DI. So both the definition and also what things you need to keep an eye on. Yesterday, we got a lot done the first day. Okay, and we talked a lot over the 3 days about grouping. I mean, that's kind of been a theme that has come back multiple times. Yesterday, we did two content reading strategies. So we did the one with the bios in the back that we used the graphic organizer called the Gathering Grid. And we also had the vocabulary cards hanging right next to the reading, which is, again, something to keep your eye on. I can't tell you what things you need, but that's certainly a tool. And we did the one over here with the bear hunt, where each of you read about a different bear. And we also talked about ways that you could modify that for kids, either changing what was on the sheet to just be a fill-in or highlighting some things on the paper. We talked about practice, because practice is a very big deal, okay? And about the different levels of practice. And we did two different kinds of phonics lessons. We did the one with the puzzles, where we did the OW words. You had to find your partner, find the sentence that it went in, and share. And then we did the one, you can tell I'm a visual learner because I now have to point to the part of the room where it was hanging yesterday. I don't even remember. We did the one where you had different sheets. So the same pictures were hanging on the wall for everybody, but the sheets were tiered in terms of what you were doing. Okay? And we did carousel envelopes. And we did it with the math problems, but I showed you some samples from other kinds of lessons. So I showed you the Cinderella ones, I showed you the ones from Make Way for Ducklings. We talked about that as being really one of the things that is kind of differentiated test prep. Okay? So we did that. I think that's what we did yesterday. I keep checking off things and I don't remember what we did. This morning we did the two-word strategy. And I had to do it about differentiation. That's a really good thing to do with kids. Think about what we learned yesterday. What 2 words tells you the most. Put them in a sentence and let it share. We did a lot of vocabulary today. So we did this vocabulary hunt over here, which was the geometry vocabulary. We did building the kids' own vocabulary with the rate, time, and distance chart, where instead of me giving you all the words, you had to come up with words to add to that. And then we did the vocabulary ladders, which was the practice one. Oh, we also played yesterday, give one, get one. Right, make sure that's on your list. Today we did From the Way I See It, which is the one with the eyes on it. Okay? And we just did Paper Bag Princess. And unless I have totally lost my mind, that's what we've done. And Quiz Trade, thank you. All right, so, you did a lot done. And thank you for that. So, here's what I want to do. We're going to do 2 things. I'm going to have you do an activity with some specific kids that I'm going to give you. And I'm going to give you a little time to go back to the list and really think about your upcoming class and what things you would like to think about using. So, I'm going to give Erica represents my middle of the class kid, and Justin represents my high-end learner in the class. So I want you to look at them. I think they will look at least vaguely familiar to you in terms of kids that you have. So just take a minute and look at these three. Think of them as perhaps about second graders. So here's what I want you to do. I want you to look back at the strategies, but also at some of the conversations we had about assessment, about grouping, about all the various components of the differentiated instruction. And I want you to think, if you had Trevor in your class, what are some specific things you would make sure you embedded in the lesson for him? Okay? If you had Erica in your class, what are some things you would make sure that you would be doing in a lesson that would work for her? Both specific strategies, but also other ideas in terms of how the class runs, how it's organized, whatever. And also, if you had Justin in your class, what would you really specifically do with him in mind? Talk to the people with whom you are seated. Go back and look at your notes and your list. And give you a little time to do this, because to me, this is where differentiation stops being a conversation and starts being something we're actually planning for. Okay? So use these three. So does everybody have a chance to talk about all three of these kids? At least a little bit. Okay, let's come back and talk about this. Let's talk about Trevor first. Okay? Be specific with me in terms of concept, an idea, a management, a strategy that you think would be particularly appropriate with Trevor in mind. Somebody can do that. Yes?
You're saying the one you see today with adverse inference, because it's completely sorted out, like Google Docs with information there are pictures that he can use, his good visual skills, and just everything is basically step by step, and it's not totally overwhelmed with what it wants.
Yeah. An important component for him is to break things down into smaller pieces, because this is a kid who might just run shrieking from the room. Right? And so he can do the work, he's got the intellectual capacity for it, but he definitely needs for us to think about some scaffolding or some kind of structuring. Right? What else would be appropriate?
Give an example of partial scale, because it's stating for
Right. And when we thought about cutting the rubric up and just let him set the goal for the next thing, without having to think, I'm never going to be a 6. Okay? What else would be good for him?
I was thinking that get in shape with the pictures and being able to work with the partner that you choose that can maybe help guide in reading certain things.
Sure. And to get in shape again, we build in some choices. Okay? There aren't a lot of choices on there, but he gets to pick something, which tends to be motivating for a kid like him. And you're right, the right partner. Justin is the wrong partner for Trevor. And it has very little to do with levels. It has to do with Trevor needs somebody to hold his hand just a little, and Justin probably has patience to do that. Okay? So the right partner could be really key for him. Somebody else, yeah.
I thought since we did the visual, remember we had the pictures, the highlighters, the colorful paper, all those.
Yeah. That much of what we did taps into the visual learners without having to do something separate. The visuals are there, so there is that component of it that makes them think, oh, I'm okay here, I can see it, rather than having to create a whole different lesson for him. Just building the visuals in will sometimes be enough. And there's something magic about color for some kids. Some kids could care less, right? But you make it in different colors is something they're oblivious to. There are others who remember it was on the green paper. I highlighted in yellow. That for some kids, that makes a huge difference. All right? Somebody else. Think about Trevor. What else would be good for him? Yeah.
In the tic-tac-toe or the perfect tab that has the opportunity where he can create the different things, like he can make something out of the game or the comics, any kind of story or drawing.
And so this is a kid who has interests. He's not a blank slate. There are things that he likes. So making sure on any of the choice things, whether it's get in shape, tic-tac-toe, the raft crumbs, that there's at least one that he would say, oh, good, I would really like to do this one. All right? Anything else for Trevor? Yeah, something that taps into the need to learn more vocabulary or just more information, but in a game format rather than, this is probably a kid who gets less done when it's strictly paper and pencil. Now, he needs to learn paper and pencil, everybody does, but when you can put it in a game format even first, so any of the game things, okay, would probably be less stressful for him, okay? All right, let's take a look at Erica. And by design, I gave you less information about her because we talked about this the other day. That's the kid we often know the least, okay? They're not really bothering anybody, but they're not necessarily making themselves known to us. We probably know less about them than we do some of the other kids in our classroom, all right? So with what information you have about Erica, what would be some choices for her? Be good for her. A lot of movement. This is a kid who needs to get up and move around. 45 minutes in the same seat probably dooms you to getting 10 to 15 minutes worth of work out of her. Okay? As opposed to if there's some movement component. Even if it's you have to get up and go over here and get a supply and come back. But anything that gets her a little chance to stretch. Yes?
I think a lot of group work as well, but changing up the types of groups that she works with, because I think in some ways she would work really well with Trevor's class and kind of give her the opportunity to be the teacher, practice those skills, but at the same time, she can learn a lot from Justin's other classes.
Yeah. Those kids in the middle, when we're thinking about group work, we need to not just always group them down. We also need to group them up. All right? In fact, one of my rules about grouping is when in doubt, group up. You know, if you've got a kid where you're not sure, you've got a couple of different levels of tasks, go for the thing that's more challenging. If you make a mistake, just move them. And somebody said to me one day, move them in the middle of the lesson. Well, if I put them in the wrong place, well, then I leave them there for 42 minutes. You know, like they just need to get used to the fact that this is a teacher who can't make up her mind and just pick up her chair and move over there. But I'm not sure we get places by opting down, opting up. I would like my eye on that. Okay? What else for Erica? Yes. Anything she can take apart and put back together. Even, so we think of manipulatives in math, I think of manipulatives being every place. Things on cards that you can sort, that's a manipulative. You know, so bringing in as many touch things for her as you can so that she can do that, all right? Anything else that would be good for her? I think we need to keep an eye on the fact that she's a capable kid, but she doesn't learn outside of what we do. So that you need to make sure she doesn't make the leap. She learns what you teach. And so in her case, everything we want her to get, we need to make sure it's out on the table. You know, it's explicit. All right? And that her attention span is fairly short, so that breaking things down into chunks, like the way we just did the paper bag princess, or the reading we did yesterday with the principles and clothes, where every so often you stop and you move things around. Every so often you stop and you talk to a partner. Every so often you stop. You know, there are specific stop points that we build into the lesson, because otherwise she's going to create her own stop points, which doesn't necessarily mean she's on task. So thinking about how to chunk things in an appropriate fashion for her, I think would be really helpful. Okay? Let's talk about Justin. What's good for Justin? Yes?
I was thinking from the way I see it, it's
Okay.
a lot of like free thinking and him to just go to town.
Right, particularly when he has to create his own quotes, you know, so maybe he does the whole thing there, but he has to come up with some of his own. This is a kid, this is an out-of-the-box thinker, all right? What else? The perfect 10, yeah, where he has some choices, and I might highlight a 4 on his, because he might take the easy way, so make sure he's a little more challenging one. Yeah, the kid would benefit from a lot of open-ended, I can come up with my own idea kinds of tasks, right? What else? Yeah.
We were saying, maybe another one that showing that next level of the scale or the rubric would be good.
Yes.
And giving him really specific places, especially with writing tasks, of ways to stretch and go a little bit farther, since there seems to be that gap between his reading ability and his writing ability.
Right. And one of the things I wanted you to see with him is often we see those high-end kids and it's easy to make the assumption that they're good at everything. And although his writing skills are grade level, he has other skills that are well above grade level, so we need him to reach up with those skills that it would be easy to just accept he's a grade level writer, but we think he could do better than that because he's certainly got a bigger vocabulary and more creative ideas. Anything else for Justin? So I want to talk a little bit about something you said when I stopped into this team about how some of the strategies look. Talk about that.
They can work for everybody?
Yeah, that what they were identifying was that when they looked at the 3 kids, there were some specific things they identified for each of them, but there were also some strategies that they said, gee, this would work across the board. There's enough structure here and pacing for Trevor, there's enough open-ended things for Justin, there's an opportunity to work with a partner or a small group with Erica. You know, that back to you don't need to differentiate everything. You need to think about the kids and make the choices that work for them. And to me, that is differentiation because you decided based on the kids you have in your class, not some mystical idea that's floating around out there. Okay? So, yes or no? Does this make sense to you in terms of how we, okay, so here's what I want you to do now. So I want you to go back and look at the list of strategies and things, and I know you don't know all the kids you're getting yet. You can even just think about last year's class, because although there's always this quirky little outlier in every group, from one year to the next, we have a lot of similarities in our group. And try to identify, think about what you're teaching in September into October, okay, that first chunk of the school year. What 2 or 3 strategies, you may not make a list of all of them, all right? What 2 or 3 strategies did we do here? Or what perhaps idea about grouping or pacing or whatever will you want to make sure to include in your planning for those first, say, 6 to 8 weeks of school, okay? So just take a little time, go back, look at this. School starts and the time to think just disappears on us. So we're looking thinking now. So, what I want to hear from each of you is 1 or 2 of the strategies that we did that you think would be a good fit for, that first chunk of the school year. And if there is a particular idea that you've been thinking about, grouping or management or any of the other things that we talked about, share that with us as well. So somebody tell me, what's 1 or 2? Yes?
Well, it was really hard to just think of 1 or 2.
I know that,
So we kind of figured we would start with something that they would definitely be using all year.
Okay.
So one of the things we talked about was like the tic-tac-toe and perfect 10, incorporating that, and making it, have them do it during the daily battle, and then with the vocabulary ladder also. We wanted to do that with curriculum and groups, starting it from the beginning and then adding it on throughout the year. So
Sure.
we're familiar with it all year.
Okay. And I know we talked about this, but I want to reinforce this for you. It is better for you to pick 2 or 3 strategies and do them multiple times until you and the kids develop a real comfort level than to try and do 6 things in September. I think that will just make everybody not want to do this. It feels overwhelming, it's way too many directions to give to the kids. They really need, because not only are you teaching them a new strategy, but you're also teaching them the behaviors that are required to do these. So if we're doing more get up and move around the room things, then how do we get up and move around the room? So you're also investing time in the classroom management pieces too. So don't make yourself take on too many at first. Okay? Somebody else, which things do you guess in the second?
We really like the carousel about using it for a first week activity,
Okay,
getting to know you. And with it being first week of school, you have those students that are nervous that might not know anybody in the class.
Right.
And that would be a good anonymous thing to do that if they don't want to raise their
Sure.
hand.
so then you could have topics like the writing things I have. So what was the best birthday present you ever got? What pet would you like to have? You know, just things like that where kids can see that there are similarities, but there are also interesting things that they want to learn about their classmates.
And also the Spin to Win.
Okay.
Our foundations program here. We think it would be helpful, especially with those struggling learners, to do just group work with them, work with teacher.
Yeah.
So,
Kind of the thing that you could do with everybody once, and then those kids could do it multiple times. If some of those kids have a parent at home that likes to do things with them, that's kind of a low threat because it's a game that you could play with mom or dad around a particular phonics skill. So not only in class, but that could be a take-home thing too. Thank you. Somebody else? Yes.
I like the idea of introducing these feedback rooms.
Okay.
Practice exit tickets, just to get the kids used to at the end of lessons, you know, word questions a certain way, so you can get feedback from everybody. And we have a teacher, we were thinking, one of us could walk around and kind of jot down, ooh, this person needs to be reviewed, oh, yeah, this person got it. So I think that's a good strategy to practice early in the year, so they get used to doing it all the time.
If I can think back to my days as a classroom teacher, the one thing I wish I did more was offering kids time to reflect on what they've learned. I assume, like many of you, a chronic overplanner. All right? My lifeline in the world is that we will never run out of things to do. And so no matter what, there would never be a time when I would simply have nothing to fill out the rest of the day. But then I would obsess about finishing my list, because if I made this plan, I darn well better finish it. And the thing that always fell off the end of it was the time for kids to reflect, because somehow if I didn't get to that, life was not going to come to an end. And that's the thing I wish I'd done more. You know, like if I think about my own practice, I did not do enough of that. So I applaud any of you who are diligent about building that into the lessons. I think that's really important. Okay, somebody else. What couple of things? Yeah.
I was thinking about that. I was in K last year, going into the first year, but none of the last three grades and so I was thinking to do a card. Make a little bit of background. This is just that movement.
Yeah, and that's a really good one for like towards the middle to end of kindergarten and on into first grade, because it's so scattered that every kid can do. Even if I have no clue what this says, I can find my partner, you know, we can go for it. Yes, I think that would be a good one for you. Anybody else? Something that will go back to class. Okay, so we're having one conversation over here. My email address is on the bottom of the certificates you have picked up every day. I do not find it a bad thing to hear from you, so that if you try something, if you have a question, if you want to give me some feedback, email me, all right? If you don't hear back from me in a few days, email me again, because I don't know where things go sometimes. But I don't think it's a penalty for me to hear from you afterwards. I will say this to you, however, if you create something and you want to send it to me and have me take a look at it, I'm happy to do that. But if you share with me, I feel that it's okay for me to share with others. So, you know, there's the caveat, all right? If you send me a perfect 10 or a tic-tac-toe board, and I know somebody else I think could use it, I will send it to them. So you just need to be, or maybe we'll post it on the website, so you need to be okay with that, all right? So, I'm going to read you a story just to get it. All right, so, anybody familiar with this book? It's a book? Okay, so, it's a book. There are three characters in this book. There's a mouse, there's a jackass, and there's a monkey. You can just call it a monkey if you're reading for kids. What do you have there? It's a book. Do you scroll down? I don't. I turn the page. It's a book. Do you blog with it? No. It's a book. Where's your mouse? character spike? Nope, book. Can it text? No. Can it tweet? No. Wi-Fi? No. Can it do this? Toot? No. It's a book. Book. Not a long John Silver. We're in agreement then. He unsheathed his broad cutlass, laughing a maniacal laugh. Ha ha ha! Jim was petrified. The end was upon him. Then in the distance, a ship, a white smile, played across the lad's face. Too many letters. I'll fix it. What else can this book do? Does it need a password? No. Need a screen name? No. It's a book. All of a sudden. Are you going to give my book back? No. Fine. I'm going to the library. Don't worry, I'll charge it up when I'm done. You don't have to. It's a book.
Mrs. Allen would love that. The librarian, Mrs. Allen, she would love that. She might have it, but.
It's actually by Lane Smith, who was the one who did the illustrations for, yeah, the guy whose name I can never pronounce. Like the math curse and, yes, yeah, parables. So, everybody read the card. Last task. Sometimes in a workshop, you get something you already knew or thought confirmed for you. Oh, good, I knew that. Oh, I'm on the right track. Oh, I'm really sure about that. Sometimes in a workshop, what you already knew or thought is somehow enhanced or extended for you. So I'm going to have you put a 1 and a 2 on here. 1, tell me something you knew when you got here that we have somehow confirmed for you. Oh, I got it. I was on the right track when I came. And number 2, how did this 3 days, the conversations you had with your partners, the things we talked about, somehow extend or enhance your understanding of differentiation? So 1, that you knew when you got here that I gave you a pat on the back and said, yep, you're on the right track. And 2, how has this changed or extended your thinking? Okay, so, chili critters. Yes. Okay, so, somebody tell me what's something that this workshop confirmed for you? What you already know about differentiation? That you're just feeling even more secure. Yes.
That it's a way to make it involved.
Thank you. Somebody else. What did you know when you got here?
I think what I got out of this more is that you can just do one assignment and it's going to hit every level rather than having to make one specific thing for everyone.
Yeah, but there are some times when it's good for everybody. There are some times when you can scaffold it so it's good for everybody, and then there's sometimes when somebody needs something different. You know, the differentiation is a lot of different things, I guess. It's not just one narrow way. Somebody else, let you know what you got. This is confirmed for you. Yeah, really got knowing the kids. Anybody else? Yeah.
I can tell, just it's different from classroom to classroom.
Yeah.
What I'm doing, like, differentiating not
Yeah, it's not always the same.
kids strive on that option.
Yeah, that giving kids options is a real way to raise enthusiasm and engagement level. Okay? Somebody tell me then, how has your thinking perhaps shifted a little, or how has your thinking been enhanced just a bit? Yeah.
It's not about level worksheets or assigning less or more work to different students, that you can plan one great hands-on lesson that benefits every single student in different ways.
Yeah. It is not just about leveling. There are times when that's appropriate, and it's definitely not about more work for some and less work for others. Thank you for reminding us that that's That's a thing we need to try and take off our plates, all right? Somebody else, how is this kind of extended your thinking?
I really like the number of whole group activities that we did, because a lot of times, we do focus so much on small group instruction, and I'm not saying that it's not important at all, but it just seems like when we talk about differentiation, getting to the kids, it has to be small group. But this presented a lot of different options for how you're working with a large group, but it really is varied, kind of in a hidden sense to them, but it is.
To me, it's all about finding the right balance. There's full group, there's small group with heterogeneous groups, there is sometimes small group with more homogeneous groups. There are times for kids to work with likability partners. There are times for them to work with partners that are not exactly like them. There's times for kids to work independently to show what they know and be held accountable for their learning. And there's no magic formula. X% of the time we need to be doing this. I think it's really about finding the right balance, and that may not be the same in every classroom or for every group of kids. Somebody else.
Anything that you did in a whole group could be done in a small group, like during your daily 5 instruction.
Yes.
And a lot of the activities that were from math, like you can take your math worksheet and put them instead of a worksheet into an activity. And it can still be like the daily math by myself activity.
Right.
So a lot of it, and so much of it can be incorporated into foundations. So it was all, what's that word, valid, definitely usable in what we already do.
Yeah, it's really just about you making that connection.
Yeah.
Okay? And I would agree with you. Many of the things we did as a whole group could then come down off the wall or off the table and go into a center or a station, or even be tucked into an envelope for a kid to do independently later, particularly the things that were leveled, like the money or the phonics things, where I might do the most basic one the first time, but perhaps later I go back and review that same skill by doing the one that's a little more challenging. So we kind of save effort. I'm a big fan of rings and envelopes and, like ways to put things so that kids can have access to them in a center or a station.